Good day, everyone. So we are the second group, and today we're going to talk about gender and school. So we hope you are all ready and in your most comfortable places to watch this recorded discussion. All right? So for our objectives, we have to identify, analyze, and apply the concepts and theories about role of gender in school. And we're going to discuss similar issues in school and will offer some recommendations. To achieve these objectives, our presentation will cover the following subtopics. First one is the gender and other related terms. Next is the school and its stakeholders. We will also discuss the different types of schools, followed by the laws and theories related to gender and school. And then lastly, we're going to talk about gender issues in schools and offer you some recommendations.
What is gender? So, I know that everyone, alam ko na the word gender is already discussed by the group 2, but please allow me to discuss it again. Okay, so when we say gender, it is a social contract that impact attitudes, roles, responsibilities, and behavior patterns of boys and girls, men and women in all societies. So meaning to say, okay, so let's focus on the word social contract. Kapag sinabi kasi nating social contract, it is how the people live together in society by agreement establishing moral and political rules of behavior. Okay, so that is social contract. And so now let's go to what is gender. So gender, when we say gender, it refers to our characteristic as woman, man, girls, and boys. So that is gender. And always remember that gender, it is how we interact with other people based on our position and power in the society that we belong to. Okay, so that is gender. I hope that is clear. So now let's move on to the next slides. Alright, so now let's different the masculinity and femininity. Okay, so first let's have masculinity. Kapag sinabi nating masculinity, meaning it is social expectations of being a man. Okay, so the term masculinity is it is the roles or the behaviors and the attributes that are considered for man. Okay, so that is masculinity. And usually, kapag naririnig natin yung word na masculinity, yung unang pumapasok sa isip natin ay parang strong, lalaking lalaki, matipuno. Okay, so that is masculinity. So on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin femininity, ito naman it is refers to a woman and a girls. And usually, kapag naririnig natin yung word na femininity, ang pumapasok agad sa isip natin ay yung caring si girl, yung mga babae caring, mahinhin, kumbaga babaeng babae. Kapag narinig natin yung word na femininity, for example, nagsusot ka ng pink, kung babae ka. So, femininity yun. Yun yung word na femininity. Okay, so I hope it's clear the difference between masculinity and femininity. Okay, again, kapag sinabi nating masculinity, it is a social expectations of being a man, while in the femininity, it is associated to a woman. Okay, do you understand? I hope that is clear. So now, and always remember that gender, it is learned through socialization and can be changed. Bakit? For example, when I was in my high school days, I didn't know how to wear a makeup. I didn't know how to wear a proper dress for a girl. So then, through socialization, and then nung mag-turn ako ng college, through socialization with my peers, with my schoolmates, I learned how to wear a makeup. Natuto ako sa kanila. Ganito palang gumawa ng kilay, ganito pala magsuot ng, pag ito pala yung suot mo, babae ka, ganun, gets. So, that is, so, ibig sabihin yung gender, natututunan natin siya through socialization at ito ay nababago din. Okay? So, nababago siya kasi nga, nalaman natin eh. Okay? So, that is gender. I hope that it's clear what is the definition of gender. So, again, kapag sinabi natin gender, it's a social contract that impact attitude, rules, responsibilities, and behavior of boys, girls, men, and women in all societies. Okay? So, do you understand? I think so. I hope. So now let's move on to the gender identity and gender expression. So now let's differentiate between the gender identity and gender expression. So pag kasi parang inano mo siya, parang sila parehas. Pero no, magkaiba po sila. Okay, so now first let's have gender identity. Okay, as an individual sense of their own gender. So, meaning to say, kapag sinabi nating gender identity, it is your sense of who you are. Okay? Alam mo sa sarili mo kung sino ka at ano ka. Okay? So, since nung bata ka pa, alam mo na, hindi ako babae. Tomboy ako. Sorry for the word. Hindi ako lalaki, gay ako. So, since bata ka pa lang, may sense ka na hindi yun yung gender mo. Parang bang kasali ka sa LGBTQ. Get? Okay? I hope na iintindihan po what is gender identity. So, on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin gender expressions, okay, so it is how an individual present their gender to other through physical appearance and behavior. Okay? So, ito, yung gender expressions, ibig sabihin, it is refers on how a person present their gender to other through their appearance, behavior, and clothing choices. Okay, so, for example, ako, malalaman nilang babae ako based sa pananamit ko. Okay? So, malalaman nila yun. Dahil nga, yun yung way mo para i-present yung sarili mo sa kanila or sa ibang tao. So, that is the gender expressions. Do you understand? I hope. Okay, so again, kapag sinabi natin gender identity, it is your sense of who you are. And then, kapag sinabi naman natin gender expression, it is refers on how we present ourselves to other people based on our appearance or behavior and clothing choices. So, that is the difference between the gender identity and gender expressions. Okay? So, now, let's move on. Okay. Now, I have here a question for you. Since we already defined what is gender and the difference between gender expressions and gender identity, what do you think are the common gender identities that are accepted in many schools in our country? Give at least 2 gender identities and their definition. So you can send your answer in my messenger's account and it will be recorded as your recitation. I will be accepting responses until tomorrow, Thursday, 11 p.m. only.
Okay, so as we learned about the diverse gender identities that exist inside the school, we also have here the ways on how we separate or differentiate them from one another, of course, to follow school policies, and this is what we call the gender division ways. So let's talk about it a bit pahapyaw na lang, no? Since we're all familiar naman now with this, since we're students as well. Okay, so first one is the uniform or dress code policies. When we say uniform or dress code policies, this refers to the different requirements for boys and girls when it comes to their clothing and accessories inside the school. So meaning, these policies refers to the acceptable appearance for students based on their gender, and usually these policies reinforce traditional gender norms. So for example, girls' uniform is blouse and skirt, or dresses. And for boys, they are pants and polo, sometimes with a tie, right? So some schools may also restrict boys from wearing earrings or other traditionally feminine accessories. So that's the first way to separate and distinguish both gender from one another: the dress code or uniform policies. Next is the hairstyle or haircut policies. This talks about the distinct rules for hairstyles and haircuts based on gender of the students. So, for example, boys are required to have short haircuts with restrictions against long hair or ponytails or other styles deemed as feminine. But on the other hand, girls might be allowed or required to have their longer hair, but they also face restrictions on styles considered unconventional or masculine. Let's say masculine, meaning boy cut for girls can be, but sometimes they are not encouraged. Okay, then of course we all know that schools prohibit both genders from having dyed hair or colored hair, and those na may guhit or shave lines. The boy cut with shave lines here, I don't know what they call it, but it looks like a line here and then sometimes here sa eyebrow. So that's hairstyle or haircut policies. It allows students to be more presentable looking while inside the school, and those hairstyle and restrictions we discuss are what they separate from one another, which is also good, right? But then the only downside of these policies is that they limit student self-expression and they reinforce gender stereotypes. Next one is the restroom policies, in which schools typically have separate restrooms for boys and girls, which is good as well. However, these policies can also create challenges for those LGBTQ students who may not feel comfortable or safe using facilities that correspond to their assigned gender at birth. And as far as I know, some schools here in the Philippines still lack gender neutral or unisex restrooms, I mean inside the school, so it leaves other gender without a comfortable option. And then last one is the sports team. Okay, so in here, school sports teams are often segregated by gender, which can limit participation opportunities for each type of gender of students, especially those who do not conform to traditional gender categories. For example, football. So in football, they often be seen as physical and aggressive sport. And as we all know, this sport encourage only boys to participate as they are viewed to be tough and competitive. Now, how about girls? Girls that wants to participate in football, right? So it same goes as let's say cheerleading or badminton. These types of sports emphasizes flexibility, right? So grace, precision, which all align with traditional feminine traits. So usually only girls are encouraged. Or if my boy man na sumali, let's say sa badminton, sometimes they experience judgments like, bakit ka dyan sumasali? Pambabae yung sports na yan, right? When in fact, both gender can really participate, di ba? So even in sports team, gender is still separated from one another. Well, good thing lang today we already have both gender participation, like girls basketball, boys volleyball, and so on and so forth. So again, for our gender division ways, we have 4: dress code or uniform policies, haircut, hairstyle policies, restroom policies, and last one is sports teams. Now, if gender separation inside the school happens, let's talk about gender inclusivity outside the school. So when we say gender inclusivity, this means ensuring that all genders are included, respected, represented, and treated equally in all aspects of society. Now we have here 3. First one is the gender neutral clothing. When we say gender-neutral clothing, it refers to apparel designed without the intention of conforming to traditional gender norms, meaning this type of clothing is intended to be worn by individuals regardless of their gender identity, promoting comfort, self-expression, and inclusivity. So example, the unisex clothes. So we have different brands such as Uniqlo and H&M, which offer lines of clothing that are designed to be worn by anyone, regardless of their gender. So that's gender-neutral clothing. Next one is hair autonomy. When we say hair autonomy, it refers to the freedom of individuals to choose how they style, how they cut or color their hair without societal or cultural restrictions based on their gender. So this concept supports the idea that personal expression through hairstyles should not be limited by traditional gender norms. So for example, a woman with a boy cut or a long-haired man. So they express themselves and their gender in a way that they want their hair or their hair to look like, right? So we also have celebrities and influencers that can freely express themselves in terms of their hairstyle. So public figures such as Bretman Rock, if you know him, if you know her, who have long hair, or Isa Segura with a boy cut. So both person embrace diverse hairstyles which challenge traditional norms and inspire others to express themselves freely. And then last one is the all-gender restroom, or the facilities that can be used by anyone regardless of their gender identity. So these restrooms promote inclusivity and safety for individuals who may not feel comfortable using gender-specific facilities. So that's for all gender restroom. So that's our gender inclusivity ways that exist outside the school. Again, we have gender-neutral clothing, hair autonomy, and the all-gender restroom.
So now let's proceed to school. What is a school? School is both educational institution and building designed to provide learning space and learning environments for the teaching of students under the direction of teachers. So when we say school, it is a place or location where people study. As simple as that. There are people inside the school, there are learners, and there are the people behind who operates and make the learning process successful. Now we are going to tackle the stakeholders inside the school, but first, let me enumerate who are the stakeholders in school. Number one, we have students, followed by parents or guardian, teachers, school administrators, policymaker or government officials, community members, and lastly, we have school staff. So first, let's discuss students as stakeholder. Students is a person who is studying at school. So when we say student, they are the main character in the school. They are the one who learns inside the school, and they are the person who go to school to learn new things or gain more knowledge. They are also known as the learners. Next one, we have parents. Parents is either the progenitor of a child, or in humans, it can refers to a caregiver or legal guardian. So when we say parents, parents are the one who sent the students or the learner in school. They are the first teacher of the learners. The purpose of parents in a school is to add up guidance to their children when they are at home. Also, the responsibility of parents is to make sure that their child is learning. So we have PTA or Parents Teacher Association in a school. So it is a group of teachers collaborated with parents to ensure the quality environment of the students inside the classroom. That is why there are PTA projects such as TV and electric fan for the needs of the learners. So number 3 on the list of stakeholders is the teacher. It is a person who teaches, especially in school. So teachers are the one who teach them or the learners and give them new knowledge. Also, the teacher is the one who supervise the students when they are in school. The responsibility of teacher is to provide quality education among learners. Next one, number 4, we have school administrator rather, sorry. So they are the leaders in school who play a critical role in improving the learning environment and the overall academic progress of their students. So administrations or the administrators, they are the one who supervise and lead the whole school. They make sure that the students and teacher are safe inside the school. Also, they are the one who improves the learning environment of the students. Okay, so let's proceed to the policymaker or the government officials. So a person who is responsible for or involved the formulating of the policy, especially in politics. So when we say policymaker, they are the one who supervise the school on a larger area or in the whole country. For kindergarten up to senior high school, regardless if it is public school or private school, it is supervised by Department of Education or DepEd. And with the higher level naman or tertiary level, we have the SHED or the Commission on Higher Education. Okay, their responsibilities are to make the policy that will help students and teacher in dealing with each other. Also, they are the one who makes the curriculum to improve the quality education in the whole country. So next, another stakeholder is the community member. Community members plays a vital role in school, contributing to the overall well-being and success of students. So community members contribute to the overall totality of students inside and outside the school. The influence of the people in the community and or in society helps the student to build and mold themselves. So next one, we have the school support staff. So it refers to the people who work at school, including the teaching and non-teaching staff. It includes the clerk, maintenance, security, crew, and other function. So in school staff, or the non-teaching personnel in the school are the one who help teachers in maintaining the safety, security, and cleanliness of the school environment. They are the janitors, guards, school nurse, or other more.
Now let's talk about the different types of schools. So we have here public and private schools, the alternative schools, and online schools. First, let's discuss public schools. When we say public schools, they are funded by the government. Therefore, they are open to all students in the designated district, regardless of their background or financial status. So public schools also offer a variety of educational opportunities and they cater diverse student populations. So in terms of gender roles, public schools generally follow national guidelines set by the higher institutions and they often adhere to non-discriminatory policies and aim for inclusivity, although practices can vary depending on the specific school district. Next is private school. When we say private school, they are funded by the government and they run independently. So either they are funded by individual organizations or religious groups. So therefore, in private schools, they require students tuition fees. Okay, also in private schools, they often have more flexibility in curriculum, policies, and teaching methods since they run independently and not under any public institutions or government institutions. Now, in terms of gender roles, private schools may have varying levels of strictness and policies regarding gender and roles depending on the school's religious or philosophical affiliations, cultural norms, or educational policies. Say for example, in a private school being funded by religious group, let's say, a parochial school, usually they are strict when it comes to dress code policies, and sometimes they even separate girls and boys in any activity. So there are some instances then some private schools are open for only girls, right? That's why girls schools or boys schools exist, because some schools, private schools, strictly adhere to traditional gender norms. Okay? Then we also have here alternative schools. Alternative schools cater to students who may not thrive in traditional educational settings. So they offer non-traditional approaches to learning and may have more flexible structures, smaller class sizes, and individualized instruction. Example here is the ALS, if you're familiar with that, the Alternative Learning System. We also have PSI, or the Philippine Science High School, which offers a specialized curriculum in science and technology for gifted students. Now, in terms of gender policies, the strictness and policies regarding gender and roles in alternative schools can vary significantly, as they often prioritize meeting the unique needs of students over adhering to traditional educational norms. So typical alternative schools have more boundless policies since they have diverse learners, or different learners, but still policies are regulated. And last one is online school. So we're already familiar with online learning, right? Well, online school is just the same with it. They deliver education primarily or entirely over the internet. So online schools also provide flexibility in terms of scheduling and location, allowing students to access coursework remotely. So example, the tayong lumayo, example, our online courses in UP, right? Usually they are self-paced type of learning. Now, online schools may have policies regarding gender and roles, but they often have less emphasis on physical presence and traditional gender roles due to the nature of remote learning. However, policies can vary depending on the organization operating the online school and any regulatory requirements they must follow. So I hope you got each point of the different types of schools and their differences when it comes to gender roles and policies. Again, we have public and private schools. We also have alternative schools, and lastly, online schools.
Now, let us discuss the gender and school law. So first, we have the DepEd Order number 32, series of 17. So it is Gender Responsive Basic Education Policy. So the Gender Responsive Basic Education Policy aims to integrate gender equality, sensitivity, and human rights into the provision and governance of basic education in the Philippines, ensuring a learning-friendly and safe environment for all students. So the gender-responsive basic education policy ensures that education in the Philippines promotes gender equality and respects human rights. It aims to create a learning environment where all students feel safe and included, regardless of their gender. One of the example of that is a school revises its physical education uniform policy to allow all students to choose comfortable clothing and promoting equal participation in activities. Next, we have CHED Memorandum Order number 1 series of 2015. So it is establishing the policies and guidelines on gender and development in the Commission on Higher Education and Higher Education Institutions, or HEIS. So this policy sets guidelines for higher education institutions to promote gender equality and development. It encourages the inclusion of gender sensitive practices and policy in universities and colleges. For example, a university offers workshops on gender sensitivity and creates a support center for students facing gender based issues.
So now, let us proceed on the theories of gender in school. So we have three: socialization theory, gender difference theory, and the gender schema theory. So first, let us define socialization theory. This is a theoretical framework that explains how individuals learn and acquire the norms, values, beliefs, and behaviors of their culture or society. School, as gender socialization, refers to the process by which individuals learn the gender related rules, norms, and experiences of their culture, as it shapes how people understand and perform their gender roles. So, through this gender socialization, children can gradually develop their own beliefs about what it means to be a male or female and form their own gender identity based on their culture norms. While schools are the most significant environments for gender socialization, since children spend more amount of time in school where they can interact with peers and teachers. Under socialization theory, there are four foundations. There are affiliation, fear, within group, and sig. So one best example for socialization theory is an interaction with peers. When students work in groups, they discuss and compare these cultural practices with their own, as their interaction helps them understand and appreciate diversity, as well as reinforcing their own cultural identity. So with that classroom activity, student will be able to understand different norms and values that is related to cultural awareness and appreciation. So this theory explains how individuals learn and internalize the norms, values, beliefs, and behaviors of their culture or society. This process occurs through various agents of socialization, such as family, media, peers, and institutions. So now let us proceed on our second theory, the gender difference theory. This defines that there are many presumed differences between the behaviors of males and females. Some are real and some are found only consistently, and some are wholly mythical. Girls are more physically and neurologically advanced at birth, while boys have more mature, muscular development but more vulnerable to diseases and hereditary anomalies. Moreover, there are certain biological adaptations that exist between males and females, such as the neurological development and physical maturity. So, school, as gender difference theory, are variances between males and females that are based on biological adaptations that are the same for both sexes. So, when considering school as gender difference theory, it focuses on understanding the inherent biological differences between males and females and how this might be acknowledged or addressed within the school environment. For example, the PE teacher gives different physical activities that take into account presumed differences in physical development. So this theory suggests that while acknowledging these biological differences, schools can create environments that better support the learning and development of both genders. For our third and last is gender schema theory. It is a cognitively based theory that uses an information processing approach to explain how gender development occurs. The basis of this model is the cognitive representation called schema. A schema is an organizing structure that helps simplify and categorize new information. Gender schema theories address the ways in which children represent and process gender related knowledge. Schemas are viewed as dynamic knowledge structures that change in response to situations and age related changes in person perception, and that have content that varies with social experiences and other individual level and cultural level differences. So, this simply explains how children learn and understand gender roles using mental frameworks called the schemas. For example, the teacher having a discussion about gender roles and stereotypes, asking students to share their thoughts and experiences. So, with this, the students will be able to develop and adjust their understanding of gender roles based on the information they receive from their environment and social interactions.
Alright, so now let's discuss some gender issues that exist in school. We have two. We have gender bias and gender discrimination. What is gender bias? Gender bias refers to the unequal treatment and perceptions of individuals based on their gender. So when we say gender bias from the word itself, this is the thought or action or the tendency of individual having favorable treatment or unconscious perceptions or preferential treatment towards one certain group over other gender group. Okay, so these are the prejudices or stereotypes or preconceived notions that we unconsciously have in our mind towards one certain group over or against another certain gender group. Okay, let's say for example, let's read the examples. Teachers tend to pay more attention to girls than boys, having more interactions with them. Okay, so the teacher is unconsciously leaning more or actively interacting with girls in the class than boys. Another example. Boys simply tend to demand more attention while girls tend to be quieter and more reticent. Boys tend to dominate classroom discussion and they also access computers and technology more often than girls do. So these are the examples of gender bias. We have favorable or preferential treatment or thoughts towards one certain gender group over another gender group. Another example, we always or some people always say to girls that this line, be a good girl or be a good girls. So when we say that line, we pertains to girls being masunurin or accepting, obeying girls. Okay? But when we have these lines in boys na boys will be boys. From that line, boys will be boys. Unlike girls, we give them or we impart to them that they should be accepting or masunurin, while in boys, we tolerate such aggressive behaviors or impolite behaviors na saying na ganyan na talaga sila. Boys will be boys. So that is having gender bias in the classroom setup. Gender discrimination. This is when you are treated differently and worse at school because of your actual or perceived gender or gender identity. When we say gender discrimination, this is the result of gender bias or any form of unequal treatment towards one gender over or towards other towards one gender over another gender. Say for example, you do not conform to traditional notions of femininity or masculinity. For example, rules that apply only to one gender. So this will discriminate one gender to another gender. And another one, offensive and gendered remarks made about women, men, girls, boys, non-binary or gender non-conforming people in your presence. For example, comments that girls are not as good at math as boys. Or, pwede naman, the girls are not as good in sports as boys or like boys. So we always have this preconceived ideas or gender bias that we have in one specific gender. Say for example, the boys are better at sports, and then we gave them the task to we separate the class. Let's say for example, the teacher separate the class into females and males. So the males are given more challenging tasks and the girls are given an easier task, unlike the boys' tasks. So that if that happens, the girls will feel more how would you feel if you were one of the girls in that class? So obviously the teachers created an unfair treatment, giving that not the same to the girls and to the boys, and even dividing them into.
Okay, now let's proceed to the recommendations to avoid gender issues in school. First is to avoid separating male and female. In this recommendation, not only does separating students within the classroom inhibit male and female students learning to socialize with each other, but it does not allow for the non-binary students to feel comfortable and to be seen. When we say non-binary students, they are the individuals who does not identify as exclusively a man or a woman. Meaning po, mahirap po i-identify ang gender preferences nila. Let's say, in a classroom setup po, to have a gender equality or to have a fair and just treatment for both genders, the teacher avoids to have a game or activity that includes girls versus boys activities or game. Alright? Second is to promote all gender working together. So, the best way to promote gender equality is by simply encouraging everyone to work together. May kasabihan nga po tayo na teamwork is valuable life skill lesson regardless of all gender. But letting students of all gender work together that is free from stereotypes will teach them that gender doesn't matter at all. So, in a classroom setup po, di ba, na nagkakaroon tayo ng cleaners every uwian, right? So, the girls is assigned for sweeping the floor and as well as for sometimes nagli-lift din sila or nagbubuhat ng tables or chairs. And for the boys, sila po yung nagbubuhat ng chairs and tables. Minsan po nakakita tayo ng mga lalaking nagwawali. So, collaboration means pagtutulungan, di ba po ba? So, hindi lang po collaboration or pagtutulungan ang meron. Meron din pong realization na, kahit pala babae ako, kaya kong gawin yung mga bagay na ginagawa ng mga lalaki. As well as for the boys. Kahit pala lalaki ako, kaya kong gawin yung mga bagay na ginagawa ng mga babae. Alright? For the third recommendation is to avoid stereotypes, including subtle ones. It is important to avoid old and well-ingrained stereotypes such as blue for boys and pink for girls. Sometimes nakakarinig pa po tayo ng word na soft girls and tough boys. Right? So, to avoid that, according to the Children's Society, 1 in 7 girls are unhappy on how they look or sa appearance nila. To reduce that statistics, try to avoid commenting on the girl's appearance. Siyempre, kapag focus lang tayo sa negative sides or sa appearance ng isang babae, lalo pong bumababa yung self-confidence as well as the self-esteem of the girls as well as for the boys. Instead of commenting on their appearance, try to focus more on their achievements and as well as for their ideas. Alright?
Let's continue the recommendations to avoid gender issues in school. So we have inclusive and gender stereotype free literature or avoid gender stereotype. So it is important to avoid old stereotypes like blue is for boys and pink is for girls, or thinking that boys are always tough and girls are always caring. So according to the Children's Society, many girls feel unhappy about how they look. To help with this, try not to comment on girls' appearances, instead praise their achievements and ideas. And also, most literature available at school feature gender stereotypes and outdated gender roles. Children are inspired and motivated by the literature that they consume. And gender inclusive literature promotes equal job opportunities and goals. Some of the examples. So first we have What My Power Gear by Mondi Redwas, Bukas na si Kajon by Josh Alberto, Dumating na si Manang Elisa by Godfrey Dancel, One of the Boys by Arkin Fanny, and Si Chow Chow by Angelo Benavides. So most literature in schools often shows traditional gender roles which can limit children's views on what they can achieve. So inclusive literature shows diverse characters and promotes equal opportunities for all genders. So for example, the story of the One of the Boys by Arkin Fanny. So one of the boys tells the story of a young girl who enjoys activities typically associated with boys like playing sports and climbing trees. So despite facing teasing from her peers, she learns to embrace her interest and proves that girls can enjoy the same things as boys. So this story promotes the idea that children should feel free to pursue their passion regardless of gender stereotypes. Last, we have swap out gendered words. So replace mom and dad with parents or caregivers. Avoid gendered professions like policeman and fireman, and non-binary gender inclusion. The gender anatomy, no more lady parts or boy bits. So using gender neutral language helps include everyone and avoids reinforcing traditional gender roles. So this means using terms like parent instead of mom and dad, and firefighter instead of fireman. So for example, in a classroom, so a teacher uses parent or caregiver on permission slips and refers to police officers and firefighters when discussing community helpers.
And that's all for our gender and school discussion. Once again, we talked about the definition of gender and other related terminologies. We also discussed the school and its stakeholders, including the different types of schools. Then we also talked about the law and theories related to gender and school. And lastly, we discussed some gender issues that exist inside the school and offered some recommendations. So we hope you learned something from this video. Now let's apply those learnings into a short 10-item quiz. Again, this is Group 2. Good luck and thank you for listening.